Social media just exploded. A jaw-dropping report claims that Diddy and Natalie Portman have been keeping a massive secret from the world, one that could shatter reputations and rewrite everything we thought we knew. From Hollywood red carpets to behind closed-door meetings, this mystery has been brewing under the surface for years. And now, the truth is leaking fast. It began quietly, barely a ripple in the vast ocean of Hollywood gossip. Just faint murmurs, the sort that get drowned out by louder headlines. But for those paying close attention, something felt off. Whispers of a strange, long-standing connection between music mogul Sean Diddy Combs and Academy Award-winning actress Natalie Portman began surfacing among insiders. They weren't romantic rumors, nor were they typical collaborations. It was something else. Something no one could quite put a finger on. A former publicist who once worked with both celebrities separately described their connection as deliberately invisible. They would appear in the same rooms, always at obscure charity events, never anything high-profile. Not galas. Not red carpets. Events that didn't make the news. One source, a former coordinator for a humanitarian foundation based in Los Angeles, recalled a peculiar moment in 2013 when both Diddy and Natalie arrived at a discreet donor dinner in Topanga Canyon. They came in through separate entrances, sat at different tables, but left within minutes of each other. It was obvious they didn't want to be seen together, but they were there for something. Over the years, there were more of these eerie overlaps. A rare, privately hosted climate action fundraiser in rural Vermont in 2015 listed both Diddy and Natalie on the unpublicized guest list. A behind-the-scenes documentary shoot about gender equity in media mysteriously scrapped its footage after both names appeared in its raw credits. Each time a link appeared, it vanished, scrubbed, buried, or denied. Several assistants, under strict anonymity, shared a recurring phrase from both their time in Diddy's and Natalie's inner circles: never mention them together. That was the rule. One assistant remembered receiving explicit instructions when compiling media rundowns to filter any mentions of the two appearing at the same event, no matter how innocuous. Another said they were once scolded for mistakenly forwarding an RSVP list showing both names to a third-party venue coordinator. Of course, speculation breeds in silence. And in Hollywood, a vacuum of answers is always filled with imagination, however wild. When fans pointed out an unusually long gaze exchanged between the two during the 2017 Golden Globes, in a moment mostly ignored by the mainstream press, online conspiracy forums took notice. Frame-by-frame analysis videos popped up. Side-by-side comparisons of past interviews were uploaded. Entire Reddit threads speculated about a hidden history between the two, from shared activism to secret business dealings. Still, without concrete proof, the story remained on the fringes. That was until a journalist from an independent media watchdog, The Gatekeeper, published a blind item in late 2023. It read, "A music titan and a Hollywood darling, connected not by love or fame, but by something buried deep in the folds of philanthropy and finance. Their story, if known, could burn more than bridges." The internet latched on instantly. Theories exploded across X, formerly Twitter. Fans dissected timelines, mapped flight records, and even tried using AI voice matching on old interviews to draw links between the two. One popular TikTok theorist pointed out a speech Diddy gave at a summit in 2012 where he mentioned "a woman who helped me see the system differently." Around the same time, Natalie had appeared in a panel discussion about political transparency, mentioning a powerful industry voice who chooses to stay silent for safety. Still, there were no confirmations. No photos. No statements. When approached by reporters earlier this year, Diddy's rep firmly responded, "Mr. Combs has no formal or informal connection to Ms. Portman beyond mutual professional circles." Natalie's camp, however, issued no comment at all. That silence only added to the noise. Industry veterans knew what was happening. "It's a blackout," one Hollywood fixer explained. "When the stakes are high enough, when the secret is sensitive enough, the PR machines go into a quiet lockdown. No denial. No confirmation. Just fog. You don't want a scandal. You don't want curiosity. You want people to move on." But they weren't moving on. Not this time. Not when the pieces, though scattered, started forming a faint outline of something larger. Diddy, a man with deep corporate ties, and Natalie, an outspoken critic of government overreach, didn't appear to share any meaningful public overlap. And yet, behind the scenes, it was becoming increasingly clear they had moved in synchronized circles. Charity boards. Investment arms. Media production offshoots with overlapping staff and advisors. And most importantly, secrecy. a tech entrepreneur who once worked with both stars on a startup accelerator, under NDA, shared anonymously. They weren't friends. They weren't enemies. But they were always aware of each other. And whenever they were in the same room, you could feel something unspoken. Like they were co-defendants in a case the rest of us weren't aware of. That unnerving tension would have remained nothing more than a curious Hollywood footnote, until something emerged that threatened to blow it all open. And it didn't come from a tabloid. It came from a journal. But that is a story for tomorrow's headline. The internet thrives on mystery, but it loses its mind when mystery meets a tangible clue. That clue arrived in the form of a weathered leather-bound journal, uploaded page by page in grainy photos to an anonymous Reddit account known only as Script Shadows. The title of the post was simple but ominous: "What Natalie Never Wanted You to See." The pages were personal. The handwriting, delicate and slanted, matched public samples of Natalie Portman's writing from signed books and fan letters. At first, most assumed it was a fake, an elaborate fabrication created for internet clout. But then, things started lining up. The paper stock, the ink bleed, even the subtle references to locations and dates, they felt too specific to be coincidental. One particular excerpt sent Reddit and X into a spiral. Some of us met under floodlights and pretense. Others in windowless rooms. What began as shared activism soon twisted into a deal too dark to speak of. I didn't ask for his loyalty, but I received it anyway. There are things we've buried that would collapse our lives if unearthed. Sean understood that. The name Sean. Not Puff. Not Diddy. Sean. To some, that was enough. Handwriting analysts online jumped in. Some, like amateur sleuth at Ink Trails, posted side-by-side comparisons of the journal pages with known samples from Portman's university days. Others brought in AI handwriting tools that cross-reference curvature patterns and letter spacing. Results were inconclusive but eerily close. Enough for the internet to declare, "It's hers." News outlets hesitated. Traditional media didn't want to touch the story yet. Too much room for liability. Too little confirmation. But digital culture thrives where legacy outlets stall. TikTok exploded with explainers. Threads flooded Instagram. YouTubers dropped hour-long breakdowns comparing every line in the journal to Portman's past speeches, interviews, and known associates. The most dissected quote from the journal was dated 2015. "He asked me what truth was worth if the system doesn't want it. I didn't know then. I still don't. What truth? What system? And most chillingly, what had they done together?" Some fans initially assumed the entries were about a political project or a philanthropy campaign that had failed. But as more pages leaked, the tone darkened. Mentions of offshore advisors, a corridor deal that bypassed vetting, and collateral no one should have held painted a picture far murkier than public service. It was less about charity, and more about control. One particular line stood out to millions. "We promised to never speak of it." He feared the cameras. I feared the court. Theories ran wild. Some believed it referred to a buried legal battle the two were secretly involved in. Others suggested it alluded to classified work connected to foreign governments or media influence. One particularly viral theory proposed that Diddy and Portman had co-funded a lobbying operation designed to sway legislation on entertainment rights, an operation that quietly collapsed after internal conflict. Still, it was all speculation, until someone decided to verify the journal's existence. A boutique literary appraiser based in New York, known privately in elite circles as the Archivist, confirmed they had examined the physical journal months earlier as part of a quiet estate auction. "I didn't know whose it was at the time," they revealed anonymously. "But I remember the name Sean appearing repeatedly, always in tense, fragmented language. It read like someone trying to offload guilt without naming the crime." The Archivist's quiet confirmation was the tipping point. Within hours, a whistleblower claiming to have worked on the periphery of Natalie Portman's production company came forward via encrypted email to a prominent online investigative outlet, The Circuit. The whistleblower alleged that the journal had been kept locked in a fireproof safe in a Manhattan condo Natalie rarely used, a location long rumored to serve as her private project base. They also claimed that the pages leaked were real. "Not all of it has come out," the source wrote. "What's online is only fragments. The most damning part still hasn't surfaced, and probably won't, unless someone from his side screws up." His side. Sean's. A second wave of panic gripped both fanbases. People began combing through Diddy's interviews, especially his more reflective, philosophical rants from podcasts and radio appearances. They looked for clues, cross-referenced timelines, and obsessively searched for language that might mirror the journal's emotional tone.
And then someone found it.
An unearthed 2016 clip from a behind-the-scenes documentary on Revolt TV showed Diddy during a break, speaking to a producer off-camera. His words, long ignored, now read differently. You ever make a decision that felt like the right move for the world, but the wrong move for your soul? That's where I'm living. That quote now circulated in tandem with Natalie's journal entry. We didn't want to change the world. We wanted to control what came after it.
Speculation turned to belief.
Belief turned to obsession. Still, neither party issued a statement.
Portman's team was bombarded with press inquiries.
Her publicist issued only a single line: no comment on unauthenticated materials. Diddy's team, more aggressive, dismissed the entire event as manufactured gossip.
But neither outright denied the journal existed.
And crucially, no one called it a fake. For every page leaked, another theory emerged. A second journal? A third party who had access to both stars and documented their movements?
Was it blackmail?
Insurance?
Guilt?
In the absence of answers, the internet did what it always does. It filled the void. The mystery, once confined to whispers, had become a full-throated roar.
And somewhere in the background, those closest to the story knew something else was coming.
Something even bigger.
Something that happened in 2018. Something that took place in New York. The address wasn't public. It wasn't famous.
It didn't appear in glossy magazines or on star-studded party recaps. But to a small group of elite power players, the brownstone nestled on a quiet street in Brooklyn Heights was more than a house. It was a vault. A place where reputations were reshaped, loyalties tested, and secrets sealed. It was here, according to two separate eyewitnesses, that Diddy and Natalie Portman spent a highly confidential evening in the spring of 2018. The night would later become one of the most scrutinized events in the entire saga, because for the first time, there were receipts.
Proof.
Evidence that something, whatever it was, had truly occurred.
The story began with an Uber driver. He didn't recognize her at first.
She wore oversized sunglasses and a scarf that partially masked her face. But after she exited the vehicle and slipped into the brownstone's side entrance, the driver got a notification. You just drove Natalie Portman.
He was stunned.
He hadn't taken a selfie, hadn't asked for an autograph.
He hadn't even realized.
But the timestamp and destination stuck with him. 3 months later, while watching a YouTube video theorizing about Diddy and Portman's alleged connection, he recalled that trip.
He pulled the data from his Uber history.
The drop-off time, 9:17 p.m. The address? 38 Garden Terrace, Brooklyn Heights.
He wasn't the only one who remembered the night.
A private chef, known for catering to ultra-exclusive Manhattan clientele, claimed she had been hired that same evening to prepare a discreet 5-course meal in the exact same brownstone. No names were given, only dietary preferences. Vegan, gluten-free, no alcohol. A staff of 3 was employed, each required to sign an NDA before stepping foot inside. In a post to a now-deleted account on Blind, the chef wrote, I cooked for a man in a tailored coat and a woman in silence.
She barely spoke all night. He asked questions. Serious ones.
The kind that make you feel like you're in a strategy meeting, not a dinner.
They talked about structure, visibility, power dynamics.
They both looked tired. Like whatever they were planning came at a cost. Shortly after the chef's post went viral, internet sleuths geolocated the brownstone and found matching real estate records. The property was owned by a shell corporation linked to a private equity firm, one with historic connections to both Diddy's Revolt TV and a media fund Natalie had quietly invested in through an academic foundation.
Then came the third strike.
A staff member, anonymous, but verified by a journalist from the circuit, claimed to have seen a black Escalade parked outside the building that night. The same make and model Diddy had been photographed stepping out of hours earlier in Midtown Manhattan. License plate records weren't public, but surveillance footage from a nearby parking garage showed a vehicle matching that exact description entering the area around 8:45 p.m.
It left around 1:02 a.m. 4 hours.
4 hours with no phones, no public acknowledgement, and no one else present but a chef and a security detail.
What did they discuss? Speculation ranged from the political to the personal.
Some believed the meeting was the final phase of a joint lobbying initiative that had collapsed earlier that year due to government pressure. Others theorized that Diddy and Natalie had been co-funding a hush-hush documentary on political censorship, one that never saw the light of day. A few even floated the idea that they had signed a mutual non-disclosure pact that night, agreeing to destroy documentation of a controversial past project. Whatever it was, Natalie's later public remarks took on new meaning. During a 2019 interview with a European film magazine, she was asked about navigating public scrutiny in an increasingly polarized industry.
Her response was cryptic. Sometimes, choosing silence isn't cowardice.
Sometimes, it's protection, for more than just yourself.
At the time, it was read as a general commentary, but fans now read it as a direct reference to the night in Brooklyn.
A night that had become the epicenter of whispers, rumors, and, possibly, regret. Interestingly, Diddy made no reference to the night, directly or indirectly. But several months after the event, he posted a photo on Instagram that puzzled followers. It showed a closed door with the caption, "Where it began and ended.
No cameras. No lies." The post was deleted within hours. But screenshots, as always, survived.
In the weeks that followed the online resurgence of this night, paparazzi began questioning Natalie more aggressively.
She kept her head down, ignored the shouting.
But once, in LAX, a reporter called out, "Is the Brooklyn dinner the reason you cancelled the Eden Project?" Natalie didn't flinch, but the camera caught a flicker in her expression.
Just enough to fan the flames.
The Eden Project was a high-budget environmental docudrama Natalie had signed on to produce in 2017. By mid-2018, it was mysteriously shelved, officially, due to scheduling conflicts. But insiders later revealed financing had dried up suddenly, and that the backers had disappeared without explanation. Some now believe Diddy, or entities tied to him, were secretly bankrolling the project through intermediaries. If true, it meant that the dinner in Brooklyn may not have just been about the past, but also about killing the future. What deal was struck that night? Was it a pact to protect themselves? To destroy evidence? Or something more elaborate, a reconfiguration of influence behind the scenes?
No one knows.
But what is clear is this: that night wasn't chance.
It wasn't friendly. It wasn't social. It was surgical. And it was only the beginning.
Because months later, a film vanished.
A team disbanded.
A paper trail dried up. And Natalie Portman, for the first time in her career, went silent. The project was meant to be Natalie Portman's boldest move yet. Titled The Eden Project, it had all the ingredients of a career-defining work: climate change, whistleblowers, geopolitical corruption, and a heavy-hitting cast rumored to include several Oscar winners. It was a timely, urgent film that sought to peel back the layers of global power structures and their manipulation of environmental narratives. But more importantly, it was hers. Natalie was not only starring but also producing. By early 2018, everything seemed in place. The project was being quietly developed under the umbrella of her independent production company, housed in a sleek Beverly Hills office.
Storyboards were drawn.
Writers were flown in from Europe and South America. Production scouts were traveling to Iceland, Kenya, and rural Texas.
The team was buzzing.
And then, without a word of warning, it all stopped.
Emails stopped being answered.
Phone numbers disconnected. Meetings were cancelled indefinitely. By mid-2018, the Eden Project was officially listed as on hold, then quietly removed from Natalie's IMDb page altogether. Industry insiders were baffled. One of her producers, speaking off the record to Variety, said, "It's like the floor just gave way. One day we were pitching to streamers, the next day, poof,
gone."
The official explanation was irreconcilable creative differences.
But no one bought it.
Because unlike typical cancellations, this one had a strange ripple effect. First, the lead screenwriter, a well-respected journalist turned scriptwriter, abruptly left the industry.
No announcement.
No explanation. He deleted all of his social media accounts within 48 hours of the project's cancellation.
His agent declined to comment.
Then, the cinematographer attached to the film, a French visual artist known for his political documentaries, was suddenly disinvited from a prestigious film festival panel. When pressed by French media, he cryptically stated, "Some things are better left unfinished." Eden was never just a movie. The real breakthrough came from a hacker group operating under the name No Filter, known for exposing hidden financial ties in Hollywood. In a highly encrypted forum leak, No Filter claimed that the Eden Project had received silent funding through 3 shell corporations. One of these corporations, Blackfield Ventures, was tied to a Cayman Islands firm, which in turn had connections to Diddy's music and media empire, according to leaked tax records from 2016. The name Blackfield Ventures had never appeared in public financial records related to Portman's productions. But digging into offshore leaks revealed board members that included former employees of Bad Boy Entertainment and 2 legal advisors with known ties to Diddy's Revolt TV. The implication? Diddy was financing the film, indirectly, secretly.
Why? That's where things turned murkier.
One theory suggests the Eden Project was more than a movie. According to anonymous whistleblowers who spoke with the circuit, the film was allegedly going to include a real-life expose embedded into its narrative.
Names. Footage.
Documents. A semi-fictionalized portrayal of events that might have blurred the line between activism and accusation. If that were true, and if Diddy was connected to any of the people or systems being exposed, his quiet backing might not have been support, it might have been surveillance. Another insider, a junior legal consultant who worked on the early contracts, claimed the production was subject to an unusual clause, a dissolution agreement that allowed funders to withdraw at any time, without public disclosure, and trigger a complete asset freeze for 12 months. That's not normal, the consultant said. It felt like the financial version of a kill switch.
But who would insert such a clause? And why would Natalie agree to it? Some believe she didn't know.
That she was manipulated by a third-party financier who used her reputation to generate buzz while slowly positioning the project into a corner it could never escape from. Others believe she knew everything, and was forced to trade silence for safety. In August 2018, just a few months after the mysterious Brooklyn dinner with Diddy, Natalie pulled out of all upcoming press appearances and interviews.
Her team cited exhaustion.
But rumor had it she was reeling, emotionally and legally. Unnamed sources claimed lawyers were involved. Not just hers, but his. The 2 camps were allegedly in talks for separation of involvement and mutual destruction clauses regarding non-disclosure violations. During a Q&A in late 2019 at a university appearance, Natalie was asked what project she most regretted never finishing. She paused before answering, then simply said, Eden. It was too big for the world we were living in.
That quote made headlines, but it didn't explain the why.
Not until a year later, when an anonymous Reddit user claiming to be an intern on the project leaked an internal memo. The memo outlined a creative meeting where Natalie had insisted on factual framing of real lobbying efforts inside the narrative.
The financiers pushed back.
They wanted fictionalized composite characters, less specificity, fewer legal landmines. Natalie allegedly refused to compromise. The memo concluded with a single sentence: if we tell the truth, we can't protect the people we care about. That line triggered a domino effect of renewed interest in the story. Internet detectives went back to link the events, the journal entry naming Sean, the private dinner in Brooklyn, and now the film that never was. The overlapping timelines, financial fingerprints, and deliberate erasures pointed to one truth: the Eden Project wasn't cancelled for artistic reasons.
It was buried.
As for Diddy, he never spoke publicly about the project. But shortly after the production was dismantled, his media company posted a vague but pointed tweet. Sometimes stories aren't told because the world isn't ready to hear them. And sometimes, they are not told because someone makes damn sure they never are.
The tweet was deleted in under an hour.
Still, it raised an even darker question. Was the Eden Project just a failed film? Or was it a threat, one that had to be neutralized by the very people it intended to expose? Natalie's silence on the subject only deepened.
Interviews became cautious. Press tours more scripted.
She turned her focus to family, to smaller independent roles, to safe causes. But those who had seen her during the early Eden meetings spoke of a different Natalie.
Passionate. Determined.
Unafraid. That version of her disappeared after 2018. Whatever happened between her and Diddy, whatever secrets were exchanged or buried, had consequences. But then came the thing no one expected: a voice.
Not just Natalie's. Not just Diddy's. Both of theirs.
Caught in a moment neither of them could erase.
And the world was about to hear it. It started with a thread.
At 2:13 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, a little-followed account on X, formerly Twitter, posted a 14-second audio file with the caption, "If this is who I think it is, the game just changed." The clip was muffled, crackling like it had been recorded through a wall, or worse, from inside a bag. But the voices, distorted as they were, had a strange, unmistakable familiarity. At first, it was easy to dismiss. Doctored content is the currency of the internet. But within hours, that tiny thread went viral. Audio engineers, amateur sleuths, and AI tools were unleashed on it like bloodhounds.
What they uncovered sent the internet spiraling.
The female voice was soft, careful. "We said if it ever came to light, neither of us would be able to walk away untouched." The male voice, more assertive, more rhythmic, responded. But now it's leaking.
And you know damn well we're not dealing with whispers anymore.
This is exposure.
Then silence.
A breath.
And finally, the female voice again.
What happens if this gets out?
The world froze. Theories exploded across platforms. Comments flooded in by the thousands. Was that Natalie Portman?
Was that Sean Diddy Combs? The cadence, the tone, even the occasional stutter, they all lined up with countless interview clips.
Fans dissected old speeches.
Side-by-sides were posted comparing phrases, pacing, inflection.
And it didn't stop there.
Audio forensics experts, both amateur and professional, ran the clip through vocal print analyzers. One independent analyst released a report indicating a 91.6% match with Natalie's recorded voice patterns. Another firm, specializing in audio deepfake detection, stated that no signs of artificial manipulation were present. If this is fake, they concluded, it's the best fake we've ever seen. The internet didn't wait for further confirmation.
Memes exploded. News outlets scrambled.
YouTubers released hour-long reaction videos. Podcast hosts debated authenticity in real time. Reddit threads were pinned and locked to prevent overload. A few influencers even claimed they had heard longer versions of the clip, unedited recordings that named names, referenced deals, and confirmed the journal entries that had already shaken the public's imagination. And then came the takedowns.
Diddy's legal team was the first to move.
They issued DMCA notices to every major platform, forcing the removal of the clip.
Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok complied quickly.
X, however, resisted, at least initially. Elon Musk himself commented interesting under the original post before it was ultimately scrubbed. But, as always, the clip was already saved.
Duplicated. Reposted.
Backed up on blockchain servers, re-uploaded from thousands of devices. Natalie's team, by contrast, issued no statement.
Not a word. But actions spoke louder.
The actress was scheduled to appear at a high-profile Women in Film panel in Los Angeles that week, an event she had personally helped organize. The day the clip dropped, her appearance was postponed due to a scheduling conflict.
Attendees were baffled.
Organizers gave no real explanation. Hours later, paparazzi captured Natalie exiting a side door of her talent agency's office, visibly upset and flanked by security. The timing was undeniable. The silence, unbearable. Even among A-listers, speculation mounted. Selena Gomez posted a cryptic story. Eventually, everything comes to light.
Pharrell liked to post breaking down the clip frame by frame.
Beyoncé unfollowed both Natalie and Diddy within 24 hours. It wasn't just fans who believed the voices were real. Industry insiders were shaken. One former media consultant who worked with both Portman and Diddy in the early 2010s told The Gatekeeper, "If that's what it sounds like, then everything we thought was rumor is actually coordinated damage control. They were never avoiding each other, they were covering each other." More damning was the emergence of metadata. A digital archivist named @TrackSignal on Reddit managed to trace the original clip's audio signature to a compressed file type commonly used by conference recorders. Their theory, the conversation had been secretly recorded in a boardroom, possibly during a closed-door meeting at the Brooklyn brownstone. The archivist noted that the background static was consistent with high ceilings, padded carpeting, and a ventilation hum common to luxury brownstones. It was, by their estimate, a smoking gun caught by accident. Some fans suggested it was intentional. That someone close to the two stars, an assistant, a tech, a driver, had recorded the conversation as insurance and was now leaking it in pieces for leverage. Others speculated the audio had been part of a failed blackmail attempt that was now spiraling out of control.
Diddy's legal team went on full alert.
Anonymous legal memos began surfacing, demanding that publications cease reporting on alleged audio material of indeterminate origin. Influencers who had commented on the clip reported receiving cease-and-desist notices within hours. One even claimed their entire archive of content was flagged for potential copyright violation, a thinly veiled intimidation tactic, they argued. But for every clip removed, 10 more took its place. Natalie, meanwhile, remained conspicuously absent from public view. No interviews. No social media updates. Rumors circulated that she had temporarily relocated to Paris to avoid media scrutiny. Her team denied it, but again, offered no clarifications. The clip had done what the Journal, the dinner, and the cancelled film could not. It forced the narrative into the mainstream. No longer confined to corners of the internet, the whispers had become headlines.
Still, questions lingered. If the voices were real, what exactly were they referencing? Was it about the Eden Project? Was it about something bigger? And perhaps most importantly, was there more? Because if this was just a fragment, just a 14-second sliver of a larger conversation, then what else was out there? What had been said before or after? Was someone holding the rest of the recording for leverage, waiting for the right time to release it? Or worse, were the leaks just beginning? In a chilling twist, the original Reddit account that posted the clip, Voice in the Dark, went completely dark. No posts. No profile image. No bio. Just the original thread, now locked, with a single final comment added minutes before deactivation. This isn't the only one.
The storm's just starting. By the end of the week, the silence from Diddy and Natalie Portman had become deafening. And in Hollywood, silence often speaks louder than any official statement. The leaked audio clip had shifted the conversation from theory to something far more explosive, assumed guilt. And as the public's confidence in their innocence waned, the entertainment industry itself began to react, not with press releases or denials, but with a chilling, calculated disassociation.
The first to move was Beyoncé. Sharp-eyed fans noticed that she had quietly unfollowed both Diddy and Natalie on Instagram.
Normally, that might have gone unnoticed, but in this hyper-surveilled moment, it sent a tremor through social media. Within hours, Pharrell, Ashton Kutcher, and Ava DuVernay followed suit. And the message was unmistakable: distance yourself now, or be dragged down later.
Even more pointed were the cryptic posts that followed.
Pharrell posted a photo of a sealed envelope with the caption, "Truth sealed for too long always bursts open." Ashton Kutcher, known for his activism in tech and child exploitation prevention, tweeted a single line, "Some secrets are weapons." Beyoncé didn't post anything, but her fans did the work for her, connecting dots between old performances, backstage interviews, and offhand remarks Natalie once made about refusing to play along with the old guard. Suddenly, every public comment from the past was being reinterpreted in the context of the scandal. What once seemed philosophical now felt coded. Ominous.
Calculated. Back channels buzzed.
One PR executive from a major agency told the gatekeeper, "A blackout protocol has been initiated. That's when studios and streamers freeze existing deals, scrub digital press kits, and delay future projects involving a compromised name. Natalie's production slate is being reviewed. Diddy's entire licensing library is under audit." Another leak revealed that Revolt TV had paused internal expansion meetings scheduled for the summer. The reason? Advertisers wanted answers before committing to future partnerships. A Netflix staffer leaked screenshots of internal Slack conversations debating whether a docuseries featuring Portman, previously greenlit, should be shelved. One exec wrote, "If her name becomes synonymous with this scandal, we can't afford the backlash." Even projects Natalie had already completed started to feel the ripple effects. The press tour for her upcoming film was abruptly cancelled.
No junkets. No Q&As. No red carpet.
Her co-stars, two well-known actors, were reportedly furious. One was overheard on set saying, "We didn't sign up for this mess." And then came the bombshell. A proposal for a tell-all book began making the rounds among major publishing houses.
It didn't name names. Not directly.
But its pitch promised an insider's account of an A-list collaboration built on secrets, buried influence, and irreversible decisions. The proposal, according to leaked emails, included exclusive details about backroom deals, hidden financiers, and private meetings with political consultants.
No author was listed, but insiders believe it came from someone close. Possibly an assistant. Possibly a producer.
Possibly one of the few people in the room during the 2018 Brooklyn dinner.
The publishing world braced itself.
Because while lawsuits could stall a book, they couldn't unring a bell. If even part of the manuscript went public, the fallout wouldn't just impact reputations, it could invite investigations. Media watchdogs and entertainment journalists began circling. One outlet, the Insider Ledger, published a long-form investigative piece titled The Portman-Combs Axis, a timeline of silence. It meticulously documented every known crossover between the two over the past 15 years. Events, investments,
activism, donations,
production staff overlaps,
travel patterns. The piece concluded with a haunting line.
They weren't just ships passing in the night. They were sailing the same course, hidden just beneath the waves.
Public response grew divided.
Some defended Natalie, claiming she was being unfairly scapegoated. Others insisted she knew exactly what she was involved in. Diddy's defenders argued that the leak was part of a smear campaign. But momentum favored the storm, not the umbrellas. Reddit theorists began speculating on who else might be involved. Posts listed other celebrities who had once praised either Natalie or Diddy publicly and who now remained unusually quiet. Soon, even unrelated A-listers found themselves dragged into the mud. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, damage control teams were scrambling. One crisis consultant told the circuit, "This is no longer just a scandal. It's a contagion. Everyone wants to know how close they were to the epicenter. And if they find out they were too close, they're going to burn bridges before the fire spreads." Sponsors began pulling out of events. Diddy's planned music festival was postponed indefinitely. A high-profile gala Natalie was set to co-chair quietly removed her name from the invitation list. And on the public side of the machine, fans began turning from curiosity to anger. Protesters appeared outside Natalie's agency headquarters, holding signs that read, "Tell the truth, Natalie, and Hollywood protects its own." A Change.org petition demanding accountability gained 500,000 signatures in 3 days. Through all this, neither Diddy nor Natalie spoke publicly. But their teams moved in tandem. A source close to both revealed that a joint legal team had been coordinating responses for weeks. The same source claimed that NDAs had been issued to all staff who had worked with them on any shared or overlapping ventures. "They are treating this like a federal case," the source said. "And if there's one thing you can learn from how fast the PR world is jumping ship, it's that they know something's coming." Because fallout implies impact. And this wasn't just reputational damage anymore. It was the start of unraveling something much deeper. Something many had tried to keep under wraps for over a decade. And when people in power start moving this fast to cover tracks, it's not because they are scared of rumors. It's because they are scared of evidence. And evidence was coming. Not from hearsay. Not from social media. But from Natalie herself. Because soon, she would break the silence. And what she would say next would change everything. For nearly 2 months, Natalie Portman had remained silent. The actress, once praised for her eloquence and transparency, had vanished from the public eye. Her absence was louder than any denial. Each day she didn't speak, speculation multiplied. Conspiracies spread like wildfire. But then, on a quiet Thursday morning, Natalie's voice returned. Not in a press conference or television interview, but through a single, devastating post on her verified Instagram account. The post was simple. No photo. Just text on a black background. There are moments in life when silence feels like protection. But silence can also become complicity. I was young, ambitious, and scared. I made choices I wish I hadn't. I can't undo the past. But I won't keep hiding from it either. The internet erupted. Within minutes, the post had over 2 million likes and tens of thousands of comments. Some praised her courage. Others demanded specifics. Many weren't ready to forgive. Natalie had finally acknowledged that something had happened. But what, exactly? Was she referring to the audio clip? The cancelled Eden project? Or something even deeper? Her publicist followed the post with a carefully worded statement to The Hollywood Reporter. Ms. Portman stands by her artistic integrity and her lifelong commitment to transparency, but she recognizes the pain that secrecy, regardless of intent, can cause. She is cooperating with legal advisors to determine the most responsible way to move forward. It was a rare admission, but it wasn't enough. Not for the media. Not for the public. And certainly not for those inside the industry who felt blindsided. Within hours, paparazzi swarmed her Los Angeles residence. Helicopters hovered. Tabloids published front-page spreads with headlines like "Natalie's Confession" and "Hollywood's Quiet Queen Breaks." Every facial expression was analyzed. Every gesture became a possible clue. The very next day, Natalie was spotted outside her attorney's office in Century City. She wore no makeup. Her hair was tied back. Her expression, unreadable. 2 days later, another shockwave hit. A previously unreleased photo surfaced, one that appeared to be taken from inside the Brooklyn brownstone. It showed Diddy and Natalie seated across from one another at a small table. The image was grainy, shot through a narrow doorway as if taken in secret. Natalie was leaning forward, her hand covering her mouth. Diddy sat back, arms crossed. The room was dimly lit, but it was unmistakably them. The photo went viral in seconds. It confirmed, visually and undeniably, what had long been speculated. The secret meeting wasn't a rumor, it was real. Reporters demanded answers. Talk shows speculated on what else might have happened that night. And in response to the image, Natalie went dark again. deleting every photo on her Instagram page except for her recent confession. But her brief silence was interrupted by someone else. Diddy. That same evening, he posted a single photo to his own account. It was of a lion. The caption: "Loyalty is everything, even when the world turns against you." He didn't mention Natalie. He didn't reference the leak. But fans quickly saw the move as both a warning and a stand, one that didn't go unnoticed. Speculation flared once more. Was the photo a message to Natalie? A show of unity? Or a veiled threat? Inside Hollywood, pressure was mounting. Several top-tier actors reportedly withdrew from an upcoming streaming project Natalie was attached to. A fashion brand announced they would pause all promotional partnerships with her. And multiple advocacy groups called for full transparency and accountability from both stars. Then came the protest. A crowd of about 200 people gathered outside the production offices of Natalie's film company in Silver Lake. They carried signs reading "No More Silence, Truth Image, and Accountability for All." One speaker, a former assistant who had worked briefly with the company, stood on a folding chair and shouted, "We all knew something was off." Scripts disappeared. Emails went dead. We were told to forget it ever happened. The scene was chaotic but peaceful. Still, it was the clearest sign yet that this wasn't just a celebrity scandal anymore, it had become a cultural flashpoint. A few nights later, Natalie made a rare appearance, this time not to a crowd, but to a camera. She appeared in a pre-recorded interview for The View, aired with no prior announcement. She looked tired but composed. She wore a simple black blouse. No jewelry. No set design. Just Natalie, a chair, and a plain white wall. "I can't speak for others," she began, "but I can speak for myself. Years ago, I became involved in a series of projects and conversations that were meant to change things. Fix things. But some of those efforts blurred ethical lines I no longer feel comfortable defending." She paused, visibly emotional. "At the time, I justified my silence as strategy. I convinced myself that not speaking was the responsible choice. But silence turned into protection, for people who didn't deserve it. Including myself." When asked directly if she and Diddy had entered into any covert arrangements, she did not deny it. "We had mutual goals. We believed we were doing something important. But we were naive to think we could stay clean while working inside a broken system." The interview ended with one final, haunting statement. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect understanding. I just don't want to lie anymore." Reaction was swift. Some applauded her bravery. Others slammed the statement as vague, calculated, and lacking accountability. But one thing was undeniable. Natalie Portman had confirmed what many feared, that she had been involved in something much bigger and far murkier than anyone had imagined. Public opinion shifted again. Some supporters returned. Others hardened against her. But a third camp emerged, one now more curious than ever. If Natalie had reached her breaking point, what had she been carrying? And more importantly, what hadn't she told us yet? Because behind all the symbolism, the statements, and the half-confessions, there was still a missing piece. A puzzle with too many edges and not enough center. And soon, someone else would supply that final piece. Not Natalie. Not Diddy. But someone who had been watching the whole time. The truth didn't break with fireworks or scandalous headlines. It came in the form of a 32-page affidavit, quietly filed in a federal office and quietly leaked 2 days later. The source? A man known publicly only as David M., but confirmed by investigative journalists to have worked as a senior analyst at a political consultancy that both Diddy and Natalie Portman had ties to. His testimony wasn't dramatic. There were no salacious claims of romance or blackmail. No secret children or hush-money payments. Instead, the document was a meticulous, dry recounting of something much more dangerous, a coordinated, high-level political lobbying initiative, funded by private money, aimed at influencing legislation tied to digital rights, media regulation, and international copyright law. The project was called the Cascade Plan. According to the affidavit, the Cascade Plan was launched in 2013 as a partnership between entertainment figures, legal advisors, and political consultants. Its goal? To reshape how streaming rights and content royalties were distributed, not just in the United States, but globally. At the heart of it was an effort to consolidate ownership and access to intellectual property across borders, disguised as creative protection for artists and producers. Diddy was brought in as a financial partner. Natalie, as the face of legitimacy. In theory, it was legal. Even admirable. Protect creators, fight piracy, preserve artistic value. But in practice, the operation became deeply murky. David M.'s affidavit outlined several key allegations. Shell companies were used to route funding to lobbyists working across Europe, the UK, and select Asian territories, particularly in countries with lax copyright enforcement. Several digital media influencers and content platforms were approached to either promote the Cascade Plan or suppress criticism of it. In some cases, payments were made without disclosure. Documents suggested that the Eden Project, Natalie's cancelled film, had incorporated elements of the plan as narrative material, which became a liability when internal dissenters feared exposure. When leaks and pushbacks started brewing around 2017, a decision was made by top stakeholders, including two high-profile public figures, to quietly dismantle the initiative and destroy records of shared involvement. That quiet dismantling included the cancellation of projects, purging of emails, and legal NDA agreements imposed on all staff. According to David, Natalie Portman signed one such agreement under a pseudonym, while Diddy, listed as a silent financier, used a proxy entity registered offshore. It wasn't just morally questionable, it was politically explosive. Because the Cascade Plan had received quiet support from several government figures, including members of an EU Council subcommittee on digital media. If confirmed, the ties between celebrities, politics, and media manipulation could trigger formal investigations across multiple countries. And so, for years, everyone involved kept quiet. Until someone didn't. David M. claimed he chose to come forward because of the growing speculation, and because he believed the wrong people were taking the fall for decisions made in secrecy. His final line from the affidavit read, "This was never about two people hiding a scandal. It was about two people standing at the intersection of power, trying to shape the rules, and realizing too late that the cost was silence or collapse." The internet melted down. Hashtags like #CascadeFiles, #PortmanLobbyLeak, and #DiddyDeal trended worldwide. News anchors scrambled to condense the dense legal details into palatable summaries. Think pieces filled columns. Late-night hosts turned the scandal into punchlines. But for those who had followed the breadcrumbs from the beginning, the journal, the dinner, the audio clip, this wasn't news. It was confirmation. Natalie's team released a short follow-up statement. Ms. Portman has reviewed the affidavit and will cooperate fully with any appropriate inquiries. Her original intention was to advocate for sustainable creative policy. She deeply regrets that those efforts were co-opted and redirected beyond their intended scope. Diddy's response was less humble. A representative for Combs issued a statement that read, "Mr. Combs has always invested in protecting artists and innovation. Any implication that he operated in bad faith is both untrue and defamatory. He will defend his legacy against any attempt to distort it." But the public wasn't swayed. Protests reignited. Petitions demanding congressional review of celebrity influence on political legislation garnered nearly 1 million signatures. Activist groups called for transparency in all lobbying operations tied to the entertainment industry. And yet, for some, the revelation brought a strange sense of closure. The journal made sense now. The cryptic statements, the sudden silences, the controlled collapses of projects, all of it had been about the Cascade Plan. Not a love affair. Not a criminal conspiracy. But a game of power, played on a scale so large, most people had never even noticed it was happening. Until now. The Brooklyn dinner? Likely the final reckoning between Diddy and Natalie, when they realized the plan had become a threat rather than a tool. The audio leak? A fragment of their final agreement to disappear from it all before someone else exposed it. The Eden Project? A casualty, its storyline too close to the truth. And Natalie's breakdown? The moment she realized that protecting the plan had meant betraying the ideals it was meant to champion. The media landscape began to shift. Journalists began demanding full disclosure of celebrity lobbying activity. Congressional aides in the U.S. hinted at a Celebrities and Policy Transparency Act in the works. European watchdogs launched an inquiry into shadow donors influencing creative unions. But amid the noise, one thing remained haunting. No one would be prosecuted. Not Diddy. Not Natalie. Not the shell companies. The plan had technically operated in the gray zone, ethically compromising but not explicitly illegal. The cost, instead, would be reputational. Natalie Portman, once Hollywood royalty, had stepped off her pedestal and into the public square, bare, apologetic, and bruised. Some would forgive her. Some wouldn't. Diddy, meanwhile, retreated into curated silence, protected by layers of wealth and influence, his empire intact but forever shadowed. As the headlines faded and the world moved on to the next scandal, those who remembered watched quietly, knowing they had witnessed something rare.
Not just a celebrity controversy. Not just another expose.
But a slow-motion unraveling of how power moves in plain sight, hidden only by the glamour of the people holding it.